I'm excited to debate, but I feel anxious just because it's my first time.
We'll do it. We're going to do it.
Right. You know what I mean.
I think you did show and say some smart things.
Right.
Let's really try. We're all nice here.
That's right.
No tears today. Unless Kenzie's just moved by already and decides to smile.
Alright, well let's do it. Just, I'm going to blame it on you now.
Jeez, that's not
Can I
gonna
see
be
a
right.
red light?
Yeah, don't say it right in front.
Yeah, I see it. I'm not going to sit in front of it.
Because I just.
I want enough videos.
Hi, Kendall.
Oh, you got the camera?
Yeah, so we already got the camera working, the zoom's running, we're all good.
So
All I gotta do is change the angle and hit this start stop button. Does anybody want like one of these cool, you can't touch the KU timer because I'm superstitious about that, but you can have either of the UNT timers.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Alright, one of these you can't squeeze too hard because the batteries lose. I think I gave y'all the good one. I'll just equally distribute because communism is getting sure. I'm not joking about that. Alright.
So, how do we officially start?
Usually you say, are my judges ready? And then Kendall will probably be like, yes, I'm always ready. And then start stalking and I'll hit a start button.
Cool. Y'all ready?
Yeah.
Cool, let's do this.
Alright.
Before you go to the first pickup, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome.
Now, when you walk out, can you close that door?
Yeah.
Nope.
Alright, I'm ready to start. We affirm that the House regrets the dominance of fossil fuels. First, I want to talk about the definitions in the statement of regret and dominance. Regret is defined to feel sad, repentant, or disappointed over something that has happened or been done, especially a loss or a missed opportunity. Dominance explains the fact of state of being dominant, such as in sociology, controlling, prevailing, or powerful position, especially in social hierarchy. When we are looking at the definition of this, it's important to realize that while logistics are important, this argument is about morals. And we realize that not one thing is all good or one thing is all bad. And know that fossil fuels has done good. But when looking at the bad, when observing how fossil fuels has come into power and the sacrifices to human lives in oil wars and the position that people and economies are put into to become dependent on a limited resource and one that also destroys the environment, it's impossible not to feel sadness, repentance, or disappointment. The first thing I want to talk about is how fossil fuels got to be so dominant, and the answer is through bloodshed. According to Harvard, a study has stated that since 1973, oil is a leading cause of war. In the article, it states that although the threat of resource wars over possession of oil reserves is often exaggerated, the sum total of political effects generated by the oil industry makes oil a leading cause of war. Between 1/4 and 1/2 of interstate wars since 1973 have been connected to one or more oil-related casual mechanism. No other commodity has had such an impact on international security. And on our side, we refuse to not regret the millions of lives that have cost because of this, and to look at that and say that it was worth it. I also want to talk about the negative effects of the dominance of fossil fuels has had. In the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change, it has found that emissions from fossil fuels are the dominant cause of global warming. In 2018, 89% of global CO2 emissions came from fossil fuels and the industry. And this is a well-known fact. The other detrimental effects that fossil fuels has had is water pollution, emissions, global warming pollution, ocean acidification, plastic pollution, which according to EESI.org, an article states that over 99% of plastics are made from fossil fuels. In the same source, it also talks about health externalities and states that air pollution from burning fossil fuels can cause multiple health issues, including asthma, cancer, heart disease, and premature death. And while this does affect everyone, I also want to make it a point that this also affects the workers that work for fossil fuels and how they have to put their life on the line to provide for their family, which is nothing to brag about with their job. So when we are the ones destroying our world and the animals that inhabit it for our own personal gain, it is with great regret to know that the devastation in which we have caused. The last point I want to talk about is the dependency on a limited resource. Because of poor allocation of resources and management, economies now rely heavily on a resource that people fought and killed over and destroys not only the environment which we live in, but poison and kills us. and this is a resource that we are going to run out of. And it's also important to talk about the missed opportunity cost for development and progression for renewable resources, because with the dominance of fossil fuels, we are not in any position to move away from something that, again, kills us, the earth, and ourselves. And now we are back into a corner which we have to rely on, which is nothing to be proud of or brag about. And what's even worse is because we were not proactive in investing in renewable resources in the past, we are now put into a position that fossil fuel companies control the progress, any and all progress to renewable resources. And this is not by accident. With the history of fossil fuel companies having ignored for decades the terrible impact on the environment, they should not be trusted and viewed as knights in shining armor trying to make a difference. They are in fact greedy and just trying to monopolize the market so they can make more money. So in conclusion, when looking at the human sacrifices that are due to oil wars, the negative impact that the dominance of fossil fuels has had on our health and the environment, and to become so dependent on a resource that is limited, it is impossible not to feel sad, regret, or disappointed, especially when considering the opportunity costs and the missed opportunities to progress and develop renewable resources to even balance it out with fossil fuels today. But instead, we are now back into a corner in which we rely on a resource that has irreversible damages, and we hope and pray that it will be a future generation's problem and not ours. And yield the rest of my time.
Thank you so much. Who's the first member of the construction speaker?
Isaac.
Awesome.
Good?
I am.
Awesome. This House does not regret the dominance of fossil fuel economy. Since 1800, the global population has increased from 1 billion to 8 billion. That is according to our world Debate-a-palooza. The reason? Our ability to harness the full potential of fossil fuels, launching us into not only the Industrial Revolution, but beyond that, into our technological age, where the standard of living has increased tenfold. Making it easy to state that we cannot and should not regret the dominance of the fossil fuel economy. However, before we can discuss the importance of the fossil fuel economy, we believe it is important to properly define these three terms. Firstly, to regret the resolution is to wish something did not occur in the way that it did. We also want to define dominance, which can be defined as the quality of being more important, strong, or successful than anything else at the same time. That is according to the Cambridge Dictionary. Lastly, we want to define the fossil fuel economy, which is our significant dependence on natural gas, oil, and coal to fuel our lives. With these definitions in mind, can we truthfully say we regret the fossil fuel economy, when we have no choice but to credit the comfort of our lives to this very system? We don't believe we can. If we look at this from a cost-benefit analysis, it's clear that the undeniable harm that has come from the days of burning fossil fuels in its unsafe and unregulated ways can be outweighed by how far society has managed to come in terms of science and technology. To paraphrase the Britannica, before there were gasoline fuel cars, there were steam engines which were grossly less efficient, and with the discovery that we can use these fossil fuels began the first steps into a truly modern world. The Brookings Institution says that first coal, then oil, and natural gas allowed the rapid growth in industrial processes, agriculture, and transportation. The world today is unrecognizable from that of the early 19th century, before fossil fuels came into wide use. All of this innovation and production of fossil fuels led to America becoming one of the strongest economic centers in the world. Resources for the Future estimates that the U.S. makes $138 billion in revenue annually. Where else can we expect to make that kind of money? Additionally, according to the U.S. Bureau of Transportation, roughly 40% of all commodities in the U.S. are hauled by trains that require fossil fuels to operate. And they have become more efficient in the past 40 years, and it's up from 27% since 1980, still from the Bureau of Transportation. This is important to our very way of life. The businesses we buy from rely on this fossil fuel dependent operation. In this way, we can see how important fossil fuels are to our economy. There's a reason we do say the fossil fuel economy. Every sector of our economy relies heavily on these fossil fuels. Putting aside the trains and roads built using these fossil fuels, hospitals wouldn't have power to operate all the technology inside them. According to a lot of sources, it's already too late to stop climate change or even slow it down. C.J. Atkins of People's World Order explains, IPCC the International Governmental Panel on Climate Change reports that the global warming consequences are now unavoidable. The grim assessment was confirmed by Linda Marion's senior climate scientist at the U.S. National Center for Atmospheric Research. Quote, "It's just guaranteed that it's going to get worse," end quote, she told the press. This sounds like even scary to some, but the only way out is through. The oil Goliath of ExxonMobil has stated that they and other companies are using their profits to research and develop ways to help, specifically through carbon capture technologies. Key among those technologies is carbon capture and storage, a proven way to collect CO2 emissions and securely store them deep underground, end quote. Exxon said that in a press release earlier this year. To conclude, we can't say we regret the fossil fuel dominance when all we can do is thank the fossil fuel economy for giving us the luxuries in our modern life. And I'm done with time.
If you want to reset it so that you can set it to like 2 or 3 minutes, you can both buttons at the same time. Oh, if you want to reset like these timers so that they zero out, you can like do this and then like you hit 2 buttons, like the minute and the second buttons. I didn't see all these mixes. There's a process.
Yeah, just cross-examination or cross-file.
You just start with them. Cool. With your statement of already saying it's too late to change climate change and we're just got to push through, you don't feel any regret that we're the main cause for that?
Not at all,
Why not?
because of the things that we've gained.
Okay, so as long as we have economic success,
Are you willing
as
to
long
give
as
us
economic success, there's no moral obligation to anything?
Of course we have a moral obligation, but we're working through it. Through these technologies, through these, the money put into these fossil fuel companies, they're able to help us. You mentioned fossil fuel economy workers being in danger of working in this economy. In your research, what kind of danger did you find that workers faced?
Dealing with emissions of gas and all the other CO2 emissions. You can pull up the article if you would like, if you want to read more about it.
Okay.
With your diesel trains transferring, that number is, what was your number that diesel trains have?
What number?
You said that diesel trains have carry X amount of numbers.
40% of all commodities.
Electric transfers 95% of all commodities.
What's your source on that?
EESI.org.
I'm looking at the Federal Bureau of Transportation, and that is a federal thing.
Okay, but 95 is still higher than 40%.
But I'm saying my source is probably more reliable than that,
How so?
because it's the Federal Bureau of Transportation.
I only have like 7 seconds left, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great, who will be the?
We're gonna use some of our prep time here.
Okay, what prep time would you like?
Just a minute.
Just, hold on one second. What's that?
Very good. Sorry.
Huh?
How much did we decide to give them?
2 minutes.
Yeah.
No, I think we're good, right?
Okay, who will be the speaker?
Allison.
Allison, if you were to go a tax speech. Okay, if you were on the, oh, no, I'm the,
Okay, I'm also ready.
all right.
Alright, I do want to clarify one thing, is that we regret the dominance of fossil fuels because of what it's done to our planet and our daily lives. Well, it has improved a lot of our lives, but at what cost? We're sacrificing our world and the quality of our lives, health-wise, and of future generations for what? For some comfort, some electricity, when there are other options that are cleaner and better for our future generations, and we're running out of time. So the issues that fossil fuels have brought up in our modern day lives, one is pollution. The World Health Organization estimates that 4 million deaths worldwide per year are caused by air pollutants, which are smut and just other things in the air. And in 2017, it was stated that breathing the air of New Delhi's is like smoking 45 cigarettes a day, and that is one of our largest cities in the world. It's a city in India. And we have other large cities that are just as bad for our lung health and things like that. Next, I want to move on to fracking, which is a process used to extract oil and gas from the ground, and it has started to pollute our groundwater. On Earth, there is only 3% of water that is actually drinkable,